Good afternoon. It is 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. We will call the City Council meeting of the City of New Ulm to order. At this time, the first item is the consent agenda. Councilors, what are your wishes?
I would so move.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Item 2.1, temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license for Bavarian Blast.
I'll motion to approve the issuance of a temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license for Bavarian Blast to sell alcohol during their event at the Brown County Fairgrounds for the period beginning Thursday, July 17th, 2025 through Sunday, July 20th, 2025, subject to compliance with all city and state requirements.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion does carry. Item 2.2 is an annual on-sale intoxicating liquor license and Sunday liquor license.
And councilors, I'd like to make a motion to approve the issuance of an on-sale intoxicating liquor license and Sunday liquor license for the Valley Incorporated, doing business as the Fusion Bar and Grill, 1627 South Broadway Street, including patio, for the period beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026, subject to compliance with all city and state requirements.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Item 2.3 is a temporary on-sale liquor permit for Seifert Bianchi American Legion, post number 132.
I'll offer a motion to approve the issuance of temporary on-sale liquor permit for Seifert Bianchi American Legion Post 132 to sell alcohol at Riverside Park on Wednesday, July 16th, 2025, from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. for Music in the Park event, subject to compliance with all city and state requirements.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion does carry. Item 2.4 is American Legion liquor license extension for 2025 downtown events.
I'll offer the resolution to authorize the extension of the American Legion Post 312 liquor license into Minnesota Street for the following events to allow alcohol to be consumed, served, subject to conditions. First is the car or bike roll-ins, Minnesota Street from 3rd North to 1st South from 3:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturdays, June 14th, July 12th, August 16th, and September 13th. Oktoberfest, Minnesota Street from 1st North Street to 1st South Street and Center Street from Broadway to Minnesota from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday, October 4th, including the Center/Minnesota intersection. Last, Parade of Lights, Minnesota Street from 1st South to 4th North from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. October 28th.
November.
November 28th.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Warmka?
Yes.
Counselor Schmitz?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
President Becker?
Yes, motion carries. Item 2.5 is for 209 Pub and Grill liquor license extensions for 2025 downtown events.
President and councilors, I'd like to offer the resolution authorizing 209 Pub and Grill to extend their liquor license for the following chamber-sponsored 2025 summer events to allow alcohol to be consumed and served subject to conditions. Crazy Days, Minnesota Street, from 3rd North to 1st North from noon to 9 p.m. on Saturday, July 26, and 1st North Street from Minnesota to Alley from noon to 4 p.m. Car and bike roll-ins, Minnesota Street from 3rd North to 1st South from 3:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturdays, June 14, July 12, August 16, September 13. Finally, the Parade of Lights, Minnesota Street from 1st South to 4th North from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. on November 28.
Second.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Warmka?
Yes.
Counselor Schmitz?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
President Becker?
Yes, motion carries. Item 2.6 is a B&L Bar Alley closure at liquor license extension for 2025 downtown events.
Before we say anything about this one, this is the one that we did have a little bit of contention with a neighboring property. Spoke with the owner a few times about supervision or security detail. So I think with this one, with other counselors, I guess we can talk about a little bit, but if the B&L was to offer some version of supervision of the alley, that it might suffice the neighbor, the problem with vandalism, I guess, for a lack of a better word, to his building, that if Rick has someone out supervising the alley, that would we be okay with extending it then?
I would say we could offer a motion and a second with conditions for approval if counselors are.
I agree with Counselor Warmka on that, some type of policing of the area. I mean, we are doing him the favor of giving him the whole use of the public right-of-way, which I don't think that's a lot to ask for some kind of staff supervision 24/7 when the alley is open, not just back and forth.
Well, I think, in the past, the previous owner, we left a 4-foot walkway as well for the previous owner, and, that gives a buffer zone to the property owner and still asks for supervision, or that property owner also brought up, why don't they just get a parklet? And/or put it in the rear of their property and put a fence to the rear to go to the back. I don't know if Mr. Cam's here tonight, B&L or anything.
Is not.
I did see the other neighboring property owner here. Maybe if he wants to speak on it at all.
Unless they're the property owner, I think we should look for a motion and a second and then go into further discussion.
Would supervision be okay with that for the other property owner if there was supervision on the corner?
And please state your name and address for the record, please.
16 South Jefferson. I've worked with Rick back and forth on this a number of times, and he's tried supervision, he's tried having people watching. It doesn't work. The barricades don't work. They're temporary. He's even had people steal the barricades. They're movable, they're not permanent. The fencing, it was a nice buffer, but it was no fence. The wind would blow it over. It's 3 access points where they have to see people coming and going, see what's coming and going. The alley's 14 foot wide. That's a big door to be watching till 1:32 in the morning.
Well, I think the license, goes till, I don't think it goes all night, does it, in here?
Maybe some
8 o'clocks
weekend
and-
events where it covers the whole weekend. Each one is specific.
Yeah.
And from past experience, it goes into the early hours of the morning.
On one side, I want to make a comment with Counselor Mack made. We have had other bar owners put nice patios, spent the money out the back of their facility, and they don't have to come in for our permission. I mean, there are other options. I mean, this history goes back a ways, goes back to 2 previous owners, not just this owner, where we've had issues in the alley. Do we keep doing it or not? We give every opportunity for park inlets. You want to have it, you come in once, have it out front of your building, or add on the back of your building like other bar owners have done, because one of those brought that to my attention. I spent the money and put a nice patio out the back of my facility, and people sit outside 24 or 12 months out of the year.
For whatever it is, for whatever reason it is, the B&L does end up being the hub, the main spot when the major events are going on, or Oktoberfests and whatnot, that there are hundreds of people
Right.
that a parklet wouldn't even be close to enough. I guess vandalism and cleanup is kind of the main issues that you want to see fixed, changed.
Yep.
And if we were to maybe even talk to Chief Borkert a little bit too about a little bit more police presence at these major events.
One, it's not even the events themselves. It's any given night. There's
Yeah.
alcohol out there, whether the alley was approved or not.
Start.
City Council President, members of the council, when we're talking about like a lot of the mischief that's going on, there's basically part of it is there's some allegation that part of this involves situations like even with, I think, defacing or with urinating, basically on Mr. Firth's property. We've been able to successfully investigate it. The problem is we're not able to get, the prosecutor is not interested in following through with the prosecution
Right.
regarding those events. So that's part of it. We're happy to, I guess, stop in and check in, which we have. We've had those relationships in the past, but we really don't have the staffing to just have someone literally sitting down, monitoring that alley. So, I mean, I think we would have to have some conditions. We're happy to abide with anything. It's just we don't have the staffing to have one-on-one supervision of that area.
President and Councilors, one of my thoughts is requiring the BNL to purchase law enforcement to a higher security to be there and on duty during these events at their cost, at the BNL's cost.
I wouldn't have an issue with that. I realize it is a hub, central hub. We're giving up public right-of-way to hold the event, or don't use the public right-of-way and you don't need any security. That's my thought.
I would agree, I mean, Shell's Brewery holds good big events as well, and they
They
hire
hire
private
staff
security.
security.
And,
If it's gotten that big, maybe
Yeah.
that is.
it's got to be policed.
I would also support the potential for a parklet and/or a permanent patio, like Councilor Christian has mentioned, that a lot of other establishments have done.
So we could encourage him to come back if he so wishes and discuss it, and that would be his other avenue.
I think that's fair.
Another option would be to approve with conditions simply the first event and see how that goes.
President and Councilors, that's, what is that one? The roll-in on the June 14?
All the crazy
Crazy days are crazy. No, it would be the roll-on.
Oh.
The first roll-in is this next
First roll-in
weekend.
would be next weekend. And I'm not here, I mean, we don't get involved in interactions between business owners, but we could, based on precedent, just set some conditions that he has to meet and then see if that is favorable to the business owners as well. But it's not our job to say one way or another what's going to work, but we can put some conditions there.
President and Councilors, I might have a question for Chief Borkert. Are there levels of enforcement and private security details that are available or and categorized? I don't know how that would work.
Well, you can hire, Council President and members of the council, you can hire private security, like basically for your own establishment. If you go outside of that area, you need to have licensed security. In this area, you don't have a whole lot of people that hold those licenses. The other option is they can hire law enforcement, like literally licensed law enforcement. Usually our fee rates are set by the council. A lot of times they consider that cost prohibitive because it's somewhere between $62 to $75 an hour. But again, that's part of the fee schedule. That's always an option. Us stopping by doesn't necessarily meet some of the mischief that's probably connected with, or at least the allegations that are connected with it.
Do you have any idea how the security works out at the events at Shell's Brewery, for instance, when I see the red jackets out there?
Yeah, they have some law enforcement. Usually they have some off-duty law enforcement working out there. Those fees, I don't get involved with that because that's a private matter. I do have some coworkers that are part of that. But that has nothing to do with my agency. I'm not the one they generally don't have licensed law enforcement out there. there's been some events in the past, like when they had the celebration, when they had their anniversary, stuff like that. We had some law enforcement out there, like 2 or 3 officers. But generally, like for Bachfest and for events like that, it's just employees working off duty. And it doesn't actually go through my office.
And someone's got the red security jackets with, I think, security on the back or something.
That's a licensed business then, Dave?
They can work, so you can just have an employee work for by statute, you can have an employee working on your grounds. You can call them whatever you want. You can call them security. Sometimes they call them different names from a liability standpoint. But that's fine. But if you have individuals working outside of your property, then you have to have licensed security. Like they actually have to hold a license through the state of Minnesota. If that makes sense, you can't have them. But if you have them on your own actual property, like let's say for example Shell's, then it can just be their own employees, and they can call them security. They can call them loss prevention. They call them whatever they'd like to. The situation that we had years ago, where they're actually working at the park during that celebration, because that wasn't owned by Shell's, so then they had to have either licensed security, licensed by the state of Minnesota, or they had to have licensed law enforcement.
Yeah, and in this instance, we're talking about the public right-of-way in the alley or,
Another place that you sometimes see, like law enforcement, like whenever you have like a wedding dance, anything that's on like park property, city property, then that's usually where we see our fee schedule implemented, and we actually have licensed law enforcement there. German Park, like if there's distributing alcohol, and that's required by the city. And the fee schedule is established or approved by the city. That's where we're looking out for basically making sure that city property isn't vandalized, and that alcohol, as far as serving and everything, is within compliance of law.
thank you, Chief.
Thank you. I guess maybe that's a topic to consider, to do that, just like we do with our park and rec buildings, and then we're consistent. It's in a public right away.
But would we require that for everyone? Or just this business? I mean, this isn't to be discussed today, I suppose, but I would like to just kind of, work through this particular resolution. But we could set some parameters and potentially see how it goes between the business owners. But again, it's not our position to get involved in what that agreement looks like between those two.
No, Chief, did you say that if he had an employee that stood in position of a security agent, that would be qualify, or what did you say about an employed?
Well, I mean, you can hire your own employee to basically look out for the best interests of your business, making sure that people aren't leaving with alcohol and so on and so forth. And that's fine. If you're having someone deployed to another area, then you need basically a licensed security,
Right.
someone that's licensed by the state of Minnesota. I mean, I would certainly think that in a situation like this, you can have your own employees doing that legally.
Well, that's what I'm
They're
wondering
well
if
within
we-
their rights, because even extending that license, that liquor license, you're still, it's basically for the interests of the property. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering if we tell him he has to have some version of a security outside if it's an employee, and we try it with the June, and if it's a mess, then we have to step it up. He has to hire a different type of detail. Would that
So
be
do we-
fair?
Do we just want to approve the June one and then evaluate that and come back in July or late June?
This is for the liquor license extension.
Yeah.
Or-
I would also suggest another possible option, counselors, and that would be to approve it on Minnesota Street at this time, but not the alley at this time. Is that possible and feasible?
Then we're consistent.
We're hurting someone who's actually trying to make the city a little bit different. I mean, he has, for whatever it is, he's made something great at that B&L spot, that people come here for that reason. And I don't want to discourage people from trying. I mean, granted, yeah, he has had hundreds of people that show up to his bar on these events. I mean, they don't come for the roll-in. I mean, he's not going to have 500 people standing out his bar at the roll-in, but Oktoberfest he will. So I don't know.
Does anyone else request closing the alley?
There are no other alleys.
Yeah.
That's just it. He has the one spot.
I'm going to hear from the mayor. And then I think we'd like
Well,
to move
having
on.
run Heritage Fest in my day, we were obligated to have security. And while this is not a Heritage Fest, it is a celebration that indeed there is a celebration that takes place. And I would encourage some kind of security to be required with this. I'm not against the alley being closed. I do know that there are other property owners, let's say the K-Bar has an alley next to them, and there are some other properties. Lola's has an alley next to them, and maybe some of them would look in the future at closing alleys. But we're looking tonight at B&L, and in order to move forward, I would recommend that or suggest that we look at having security, whether it's in-house security or hire out through the off-duty police officers.
So with the addition of exterior security,
Okay.
we could approve these all, and as long as that condition is met, again, what happens between the bar owner and the property owner, that is between them. That's not our position.
With some supervision, with some security, I think things will change. I really do.
Okay, then I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I'll offer the resolution to temporarily close the alley adjacent to the B&L Bar and authorize the extension of the B&L Bar liquor license to be into the closed alley area and Minnesota Street for the following events to allow alcohol to be consumed, served, subject to conditions and security detail provided by the bar owner. Crazy Days, Minnesota Street from First North Street to Center from Friday, July 25th at 2 p.m. until Sunday, July 27th at 12 p.m. Minnesota Street 3rd North to First North from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Saturday, July 26th from First North from Minnesota to Alley from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Car and bike roll-ins, Minnesota Street from 3rd North to First South from 3:30 to 8 p.m. Saturdays, June 14th, July 12th, August 16th, September 13th. Spiking in the Streets, Minnesota Street from 2nd North to Center from Friday, August 1st at 8 a.m. until Sunday, August 3rd at 3 p.m. with the intersection of First North and Minnesota open till 4 p.m. Friday the 1st. First North from Minnesota to Alley from 4 p.m. Friday to First till 3 p.m. Sunday, August 3rd. Oktoberfest, Minnesota Street from First North to Center Street from Friday, October 3rd at 8 a.m. until Sunday, October 5th at 12 p.m. Close Center Street from Broadway to Minnesota from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, October 4th, including the Center and Minnesota intersection. Parade of Lights, Minnesota Street from First South to Fourth North from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. November 28th.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Warmka. We do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Warmka?
Yes.
Counselor Schmitz?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
President Becker?
Yes, motion carries. Item 2.7 is regarding Kaiserhoff and K-Bar liquor license extension for 2025 downtown events. And thank you, Chief.
I'll offer the resolution authorizing the Kaiserhoff K-Bar to extend their liquor license for the following chamber-sponsored events, 2025 summer events, to allow alcohol to be consumed, served, subject to conditions. Crazy Days, Minnesota Street from 3rd North to First North from 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Saturday, July 26th, and First North Street from Minnesota Street to Alley from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Car and bike roll-ins, Minnesota Street from 3rd North to First South from 3:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturdays, June 14th, July 12th, August 16th, September 13th. Parade of Lights, Minnesota Street from 1st South Street to 4th North from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. on November 28th.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Warmka?
Yes.
Counselor Schmitz?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
President Becker?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 2.8, rounding out our extensions, Rodney's Tavern Liquor License Extension for 2025 downtown events.
I'll take the short one. I'm going to offer the resolution to authorize the extension of Rodney's Tavern liquor license in the Minnesota Street for the following events to allow alcohol to be consumed, served, subject to conditions. Car and bike roll-ins, Minnesota Street from 3rd North to 1st South from 3:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturdays, June 14th, July 12th, August 16th, September 13th. Oktoberfest, Minnesota Street from 1st North to 1st South Street and Center Street, including Alley to Center Street from Broadway to Minnesota from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, October 4th, including the Center and Minnesota intersection. Parade of Lights, Minnesota Street from 1st South to 4th North from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. November 28th.
Second.
Thank you. A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just would like to bring up that, we also have liquor license at Lola's and Mounds, and they're not on here, but, hopefully they'll come forward or something, or how do they handle that, or,
Well, this
for
has
events.
been, they finally have kind of been putting all of these together once their liquor license renews. And so that we don't have to do it. And I'm anticipating them to come forward at a meeting or two.
Sure.
With their annual schedule, but I think everybody's just on a different timeline. But we used to have to do these one at a time after every event, and we kind of encouraged them to kind of box it for us so that we can get it all approved at once, so.
Sure.
Any additional discussion? Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Warmka?
Yes.
Counselor Schmitz?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
President Becker?
This motion carries. Item 2.9 is a bingo and raffles gambling permit for Cathedral of the Holy Trinity.
President and councilors, I'd like to make a motion approving the issuance of a lawful gambling permit for Cathedral of the Holy Trinity to conduct bingo and raffles gambling on Sunday, August 17, 2025.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and a second are on the floor. Any further discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Item 2.10 is a raffles gambling permit for New Ulm Youth Wrestling Association.
President and councilors, I'd also like to make a motion to approve the issuance of a lawful gambling permit for New Ulm Youth Wrestling Association to conduct raffles gambling at the New Ulm Country Club at 1 Gulf Drive, New Ulm, Minnesota, on Monday, July 21, 2025.
Second.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion does carry. Item 2.11 is general license renewals for the 2025-2026 year.
I'll motion to approve the issuance of the following renewals of general licenses for the period beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026, subject to compliance with all city and state requirements. Tobacco, fireworks, retail sellers, kennel, sheep, solid waste haulers, taxi cab, rideshare services, including Uber, Lyft, and tree services.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion does carry. Moving on to Section 3, reports from officers, boards, and commissions. Item 3.1 is regarding a planned use development, general development plan for Keepers Highland Apartments. I will say that this is not a public hearing, so I will not be allowing public comments at this meeting. We'll have presentations by Mr. Nisley and probably some follow-up information by City Engineer Stadheim. We'll have some time for council comments, and we'll continue from there. Mr. Nisley, go ahead. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Council President, Councilors. John Nisley, planner with the City of New Ulm. So this item here is to offer a resolution to approve the application for a plan unit development with a general development plan by Steve Keppers of Keppers Incorporated for the property currently legally described as parts of Outlot 194, 195, 196, and 197. The street address of the site is 901 North Highland Avenue. The Planning Commission at their May 29th, 2025 meeting unanimously recommended approval of the request with conditions based on the finding of fact form that was completed by the commission that was included in your council packets. The subject property has a total area of 10.2 acres. This property has been farmed in the past and is currently being farmed. The proposed project would involve the construction of 4 three-story apartment buildings, 8 detached garages, along with a sports court, children's playground, dog park, parking lots, stormwater ponds, and the extension of 10th North Street from North Highland Avenue to the west. The project, the project is proposed to have 2 38-unit buildings with a mix of studio, 1 and 2 bedroom units fronting North Highland Avenue as Phase 1, and then 2 36-unit apartments further to the west as Phase 2 of the proposed project. There are a total of 148 units being proposed on the site. The R4 lot area requirements, that's the high-density residential district requirements, would allow up to 214 dwelling units on this property. The developer is proposing 66 fewer units than what would be allowed by that zoning district. The buildings have been positioned in a northeast to southwest orientation. The developer has stated that the reasoning for this orientation was to have the narrowest portions of the buildings facing the existing residential areas. Staff has received a preliminary landscape plan, and there are evergreen trees being proposed on all sides of the property facing residential areas to provide further screening. The developer is proposing to construct an extension of 10th North Street with underground utilities. The street will extend from North Highland Avenue to the west, and the street right-of-way will be 60 feet wide and 730 feet in depth. I want to go over the approval process for a planned unit development according to our zoning ordinance. So Chapter 7.9 of Appendix A of the City Code allows for the establishment of a planned unit development or PUD zoning district. The definition of a PUD is as follows: type of development which may incorporate a variety of land uses, planned and developed as a unit. The PUD is distinguished from the traditional subdivision process of development in that zoning standards such as density, setbacks, height limits, and minimum lot sizes may be altered by negotiation and agreement between the developer and the municipality. The intent of the PUD is to allow for the deviation from definitive and precise requirements of established zoning districts. This is permitted if the particular areas to be developed can offer greater value to the community and can preserve the community's health, safety, and welfare. That if those same areas were to be developed as a single-purpose district. I would note with this developer's application, they're requesting deviation from one of the R4 zoning district standards, and the only deviation they're asking for is to place the garage structures in front of the permitted use, which would be the apartment buildings on the perimeter of the site in order to provide further screening of the apartments. Other than that, they're meeting all the other standards that would be set forth for the R4 zoning district. To establish the PUD, the following documents must be approved. 1, the rezoning of the property by ordinance to PUD. The rezoning of the property will be effective upon the council's adoption of the PUD General Development Plan for the project. 2, a PUD General Development Plan as described in Chapter 7.9 of the City Zoning Ordinance, a development agreement, final plat, and then meeting the approval standards. The approved General Development Plan will establish the permitted uses within the development that are desirable in achieving the objectives of the PUD. However, there must be clear evidence that such uses are desirable and appropriate with respect to the primary purpose of the development. Such uses are not of such nature or to be so located as to exercise a detrimental influence on the development or use of the surrounding neighborhood. The General Development Plan is intended to illustrate the intent and general nature of the proposed PUD and establish the requirements and standards that will apply to the project. I would note that this is one of 2 PUDs being considered tonight, so the approval process, if the council allows, I'd like to read through it this one time, which I did, and not the next time when we go to the next PUD. So regarding public comment on this project, staff has received 4 letters, 3 emails, multiple phone calls to city staff, council members, and the mayor in opposition to the project proposal. That correspondence has been provided within the staff report, along with copies that were received today, were handed out to the council. All of that correspondence will be included as part of the public record regarding this project. We did receive one additional email today regarding the project, requesting more information on landscaping and details regarding that subject. And then I provided that to them. That is also provided to the council and will be part of the public record. They were not opposed to the project. I'd like to provide just a little bit of background in response to many of the comments, concerns, and letters that we did receive from the public. There were some reoccurring themes that we were hearing from the public. Main themes being traffic, safety, the scale of the buildings in relation to the neighboring properties, whether or not the city and its staff were following legal procedures in considering this type of approval. So I've tried to lay out here to the best of our ability responses to some of those items brought up. It might take me just a little bit to read through this, but I would like to do that for the record. So the first, one of the first comments we received is that we are being inconsistent with Minnesota State Statute 462.357 regarding zoning regulations and the consistency with the comprehensive plan. So a formal public hearing took place in front of the Planning Commission and City Council to amend the comprehensive plan for this area to be changed from medium density and low density residential land use designation to high density residential land use designation. That process followed state statute and the process outlined in the city zoning ordinance. Public hearings took place at the Planning Commission in February and then at the City Council in March. Notice of the public hearings were sent to residents within 350 feet of the subject property and published in the New Ulm Journal according to statute. The Planning Commission and City Council recommended approval of the amendment, and the comp plan as amended now guides the property to high-density residential. There was concern that we are spot zoning and setting a legal precedent. So surrounding land uses to the site include the Kids Excel Center to the south, single-family homes and twin homes also to the south, twin homes and single-family homes to the east, and a farm field in the New Ulm High School to the north. The wide right-of-way of North Highland Avenue, which is 120 feet wide, area, mixed residential densities, and varied uses in the area would provide the consideration of a higher density residential use in the area. The current zoning designation is AOS, that's agricultural open space, of which the purposes of the AOS district defined in the city zoning ordinance are: 1, to be retained in agricultural use in advance of the need for these lands for urban purposes. And then the city has been consistent with using that AOS district as a holding district for future urban purposes. In the past, it was the RA, it was the Residential Agricultural District. The remainder of the Marty property will be AOS, and future development and road layouts will be contemplated by the Planning Commission and City Council at a future date. We had questions regarding procedural deficiencies and due process. The city has followed state statute along with the requirements outlined in the city zoning ordinance for both the consideration of the comprehensive plan and now this proposed planned unit development general development plan. Notification was sent in the mail prior to the 10 days prior to the public hearing being conducted and published in the journal 10 days prior to the hearing. Notice was sent out again to property owners within 350 feet of the subject property. There was concern that we weren't considering environmental review obligations. So stormwater management for this project is required to adhere to both the city's stormwater standards and the standards provided by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Stormwater management must be conducted on the site during and following construction indefinitely. City Engineering Department has stormwater staff that will review the proposed stormwater plans, inspect the controls implemented by the developer during and following construction. The ponds are designed to be what are considered dry ponds. That means that they're designed to be dry or not hold water within 48 hours of a rainfall event. The developer will also be responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of those stormwater ponds so they function properly on the site. Regarding the mandatory environmental assessment worksheet requirements cited, the city attorney has determined that for the construction of the project with a projected number of attached units to be less than 150, an EAW would not be required. The most up-to-date plan from the applicant will contains 148 attached units. The developer, again, is proposing to construct two 38-unit apartments facing North Highland Avenue as Phase 1, and then two 36-unit apartments at the rear of the property as Phase 2. There were many concerns regarding traffic, utility infrastructure, and public safety for this site. The city engineer, the public utilities engineer, and the public utilities director have all reviewed the project proposal and the implications on city, street, and utility systems. So first, streets. The city engineer has used the EPA mixed-use trip generation model to estimate the amount of traffic to be generated from the site. That model has estimated a total of 1,023 trips per day, with 77 trips at the peak AM hour and 99 trips during the peak PM hour. That model assumes that each unit will house up to 2.5 people and 1.85 vehicles per unit. So when we incorporate this additional traffic estimated to be generated to the traffic study done by MnDOT in 2021, we end up with a total of 4,566 vehicles per day using this segment of North Highland Avenue. That amount of traffic is comparable to existing traffic today on North Garden Street between 5th North and US Highway 14. In the 2006 North Highland Avenue Improvements feasibility study, they anticipated traffic volumes along North Highland Avenue to be between 7th North Street and US Highway 14 to be 4,670 vehicles per day by 2026. So what we're trying to say by that is North Highlands Avenue design took into account that they estimate a vehicle traffic use of this section of North Highland Avenue to be 4,670 vehicles per day. Our estimates, based on using the EPA model and then the traffic study by MnDOT, estimated 4,566 vehicles per day. So we're fairly close with what was being estimated to what we would be looking at with this additional traffic generated by the site. City engineers stated that after the completion of the project, traffic volumes and patterns would be monitored and considered future improvements as traffic patterns are established. Utilities. City engineer, public utilities engineer, and director have reviewed the utility needs for gas, water, electric, wastewater, and stormwater, and determined there is adequate capacity to serve the project of this site with the existing utility infrastructure already in place and without interruption to existing neighborhoods in the area. There was concern regarding parking and visual blight. The developer has proposed to locate the garages on the site on the perimeter to visually break up the taller apartments on the interior. The proposed apartments are to be constructed at 40 feet 6 inches in height. Residents in single-family homes in New Ulm are allowed to construct their homes up to 35 feet in height. In the developer's general development plan, they state their buildings use broken facades, undulation, balconies, colors, texture, and banding that serve to break down the scale of the buildings so that they are more relatable to the human scale. The buildings will have a traditional residential aesthetic, and that will relate to neighboring residential buildings. City zoning requirements specify that each unit is required to have 2 off-street parking stalls per unit. The developer has provided up to 304 parking stalls with both surface parking and indoor garage parking. The parking stalls meet the minimum standard of 9 by 20, and the driving lanes are designed with a 26-foot driving lane width. Both the stalls and driving lanes meet the standards outlined in the city ordinance. In fact, they'll have 8 extra stalls for visitors on the site. The dumpsters on the property will be located and screened per the city zoning regulations. There was concern that this was going to affect property values and tax equity. So the city of New Ulm has worked with the Brown County Assessor's Office in review of the increased property values near multifamily buildings. So since 2019, property values for all residential properties has dramatically increased, I should say. We gathered sales data for residential properties directly adjacent to multifamily apartments since 2019. That data showed that there were 11 sales of properties that met that location criteria and were single-family residence properties. Of those 11 properties, 8 of those sold for more than the estimated market value at that time, and 3 of them sold for less. So note that one of the sales that was for less was a bank sale or a foreclosure sale. I would also like to express to the council that this is market rate housing. I think there's been discussion out there that this is low-income housing. It's market rate housing. The developer has requested no city incentives, and we are unaware of any other governmental incentives to provide funding for this project. Precedent and long-term consequences. The city relies on its comprehensive plan and zoning regulations for making decisions on land use applications. In cases where proposed land uses may not directly line up with both the comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance, procedures outlined in those documents are followed that involve public hearings and neighbor notifications of the proposed use. These procedures were developed based off state statute and also went through a public hearing process before being adopted by the city council. We have followed those procedures outlined in the city's comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance in the review of this proposal. I'm going to keep going here. I have another about page and a half.
No, keep going. You're good.
Lack of infrastructure planning. In 2006, a feasibility study on North Highland Avenue was undertaken between 7th North Street and US Highway 14. This study was conducted before the reconstruction of this major arterial roadway within the community. The study considered 4 roadway options that were provided through a previous feasibility study conducted in 1999. At that time, in 2006, option 2 was selected and slated for this section of North Highland Avenue to be a 4-lane parkway with no parking on either side of the roadway. However, in selecting this option, the city council acted to modify this typical section into a 2-lane roadway with parking allowed on both sides for the foreseeable future. When traffic volumes dictate a 4-lane roadway on North Highland Avenue, parking could be removed and converted to vehicular traffic use. Traffic, public safety, and pedestrian crossings across North Highland Avenue. Traffic volumes and estimates were stated previously. The city engineer has determined that if traffic volumes and movements dictated, traffic control measures and pedestrian crossings may be improved if the traffic warrants it. We will continue to monitor traffic volume and movements in the North Highland Avenue area. There's concern that having additional residents up there in these apartments would add to noise pollution and car alarms. Staff responded that noise and traffic and car alarms, there is potential for all of those things in any type of residential development. There was concern for the safety of the kids playing in the street on the east side of North Highland Avenue. Staff anticipates traffic generated from the project site to enter onto North Highland Avenue and either travel north or south. There should be no need for traffic to enter the neighborhood streets on the east side of North Highland Avenue, as those streets all end up flowing back onto North Highland Avenue regardless. Locating the project further to the north between 12th North and the Walnut Pit. So we did have one person suggest another option for this type of development at a different site. So this area was considered by the developer in the initial review of the property in the city. This location does not provide adequate space for the development, has topographical issues, and has future North Highland Park in the middle of the property. Additionally, the Walnut Pit is to be further expanded in the future and continue to mine to the south. Just wanted to pull up a map regarding that. So I also wanted to note that when we get any type of interest from residential developers in New Ulm, we don't ever steer them to one site or the other. We typically provide them with options where you could consider a site, and then they have to do the legwork to contact the landowner, to look at our city regulations, to see if this site would indeed fit what they're proposing to do. So in this case, sites that were considered for this project on the city side here on the very south end of town, that is Upper Cottonwood Street. This property here is owned by one property. It's not currently incorporated into the city limits. That property owner has shown no interest in selling property for future residential development. In addition, at that site location, we would need major utility infrastructure updates for both water and sewer, involving lift stations and likely a brand-new water tower up for any future development to the south. We looked over here, that is Ridgeway on German. Directly to the south of Ridgeway on German, there's a smaller parcel of land where a multifamily project could be considered. There are a number of issues. With that site. Number one being access to the site. There's a steep slope from German down to the actual developable area there. So in order to access that site, you would actually have to come off of 7th. In reviewing that, then we have also additional issues with fire safety and getting from the hydrant back to that site and then being able to turn around in that site with our fire trucks. We looked at the rest of the Marty property further to the south and west. With that site, it would be something to be considered. But ultimately, all of the traffic that would be generated from the site ends up back up on North Highland Avenue. We considered, this is the property I just discussed. This is where North Highland Park is and the Walner Pit here directly to the north. There's an additional piece of property owned by a private property owner just to the north of Airport Crosswind Runway. That property wasn't available, and if I understand correctly, the city may be considering purchasing a portion of that property for airport safety, the airport safety zone for the new Crosswind runway. There was another property along North Highland Avenue, but closer to Garden Street, that's owned by a private property owner. That person that owns that property is not interested in selling it. In fact, they want to develop that property themselves. Back behind the twin homes on North Highland Avenue, just before you get to the Star Keller, it's another private property that is owned. That seller was not interested, or that property owner was not interested in selling. We looked at the open space of the Lutheran Cemetery. They want to hold on to that space for future cemetery uses. We also looked at, there's a multifamily site that's currently being developed in the Lakeside Village Edition. And then lastly, we looked at the site that is by Ridgeway on 23rd. And that site didn't provide enough space for the size of the development being proposed by the developer. So I just wanted to show this map to show that we did take a look at multiple other sites and point out just a few other things. So City of New Ulm is bound to the north by the Minnesota River, and then we have the Cottonwood River to the south. We also have Flandreau State Park, and then we have the New Ulm Municipal Airport and its safety zones. So it's a challenge to find sites for any residential development, any industrial and commercial development in New Ulm that aren't occupied unless you go to the north and west. So that is, I just wanted to show that with this map. So there was concern about access, or is there an option to access 7th North Street rather than using newly constructed 10th North Street and the existing curb cut at 9th North. So the developer has contemplated having tenant traffic use 7th North Street as an additional access point or a replacement access. The city engineer would prefer that the site have vehicular access onto North Highland Avenue directly rather than through 7th North, as both options put all vehicular traffic back onto North Highland Avenue. There's a question on whether or not there's enough play space being provided on the site for kids that may live in the development. So the city doesn't require a certain amount of play space for the project of this nature. The only requirements we do have that specifically dictate the amount of outdoor play or open area is in our manufactured home park regulations, which requires 5% of the total project area be dedicated for play or open space. So if we were to, hypothetically, if we were to use that formula and put it on this site, the developer would be required up to 22,000 square feet of open or play space on the site. So the development proposal shows up to 55,900 square feet of open and play space on the site between the apartment structures, which ends up being a total of 12.5% of the total project site. There was concern that we weren't charging enough for a parkland dedication fee. The city requirement for the parkland dedication fee here are $1,050 per lot. We have 4 lots that are being considered, and then $350 per residential unit. So for this project, the parkland dedication fee will be $56,000. There was also questions on whether or not we have been in contact with the District 88, the school district. Staff has been in contact with the District 88 superintendent regarding this project. He indicated that when considering future school development in the nearby areas, if they were to have more development to the south onto the Marty property, it would most likely be for future parking expansion. He did note that he wants to be involved with any processes that involve new streets that would continue Oak Street through the Marty property and out to 7th North, so he would like to play a part in that. We've also been in contact with EMS, fire, and police. They were contacted regarding the project and the proposed layouts. All emergency services confirm they have adequate access, turning movement spaces on the site proposed by the developer. Okay. With this project, the Planning Commission recommended 2 conditions. 1, that the applicant/owner will pay the cost to record the necessary documents with the Brown County Recorder's Office. And then 2, the establishment of the planned unit development project will require the approval of the following documents. A, rezoning the property by ordinance. B, development agreement. This development agreement for this project has not been started or initiated. Staff was waiting on the city council's recommendation or consideration of this project before we went forward with anything on a development agreement. And then C, the final plat, and that would come back to the council on June 17th. We do have a number of attachments, including Highland Apartments Plan Unit Development Staff Report with attachments to the Planning Commission findings of facts, resolution, grading plan, and a landscape plan. And that would conclude the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Nisley. Councilors?
I got a question, I guess, for the city engineer, Joe, if he could maybe touch base, for the traffic, or maybe how would we address going from 2-lane to 4-lane possibly, or implementing that for the future once we have development?
Well, typically, a roadway, a 2-lane roadway can handle upwards of, anywhere from 8,000 to 10,000 vehicles per day. We recently had the reconstruction projects. You look to the 2018 MnDOT Gateway project where we went from 4 to 2 on 7th North as it comes into town. And in addition, on 20th South, that went down from 4 to 3, 1 lane in each direction with the center turn lane. Those roadways approximately had about that 8,000-ish vehicles per day, and at the time of those reconstruction projects, we recommended cutting those lanes down to 2 lanes, 1 lane in each direction. Should the traffic volumes dictate, again, in that 8 to 10,000 vehicles per day, that would be when we would look at converting Highland to a 4-lane arterial roadway segment.
Okay.
I was going to say, we do have one letter that was requested to be read into the record.
Yes, I was contacted by somebody that couldn't make it today. This was a letter sent on Sunday. It's a long letter, but I did tell her because there was no public comment, I would read this into the record. The other emails received by city staff have been included in the packet.
So again, if John, Joe, you guys are able to kind of listen and maybe have some answers to some of these, might be
In
helpful.
case there's
So,
anything that
yep.
wasn't previously addressed.
This is by Thomas and Amanda Portner McGannon, 16 Bishop Lucker Lane, New Ulm, Minnesota. Dear members of the City Council and City staff, we write you this letter with respect and appreciation for your service to New Ulm and your role in guiding the city's long-term development. Our purpose is not to oppose growth or housing, but to ensure that decisions of this scale are supported by current, complete, and corridor-wide analysis. We respectfully request that the city require an updated third-party traffic and pedestrian safety study prior to advancing zoning or entitlement decisions related to the proposed Highland Apartments development at 901 Highland Avenue. The proposed project would add 148 new apartment units at the midpoint between two critical traffic nodes, New Ulm High School to the north and the bottleneck at 5th North and Highland to the south. City estimates suggest that this will increase daily traffic by at least 28.9% along a segment of Highland that already experiences peak hour backups, pedestrian conflicts, and parking overflows from special events. No updated studies have been completed to assess this impact of this increase on emergency response times, pedestrian safety near the high school and Oak Garden corridors, traffic flow downstream from Center, Garden, and adjacent school, the structural capacity of Highland Corridor, particularly between 5th and Center. The 2006 study is outdated and incomplete. City references to a 2006 feasibility study cannot be considered sufficient in 2025. That study predates the New Ulm High School, predates the Aldi and surrounding commercial corridor development, predates substantial residential growth along Highland Corridor, was based on theoretical design capacity, not observed traffic conditions, lacks modern capacity and traffic assessment such as real-time GPS-enabled traffic modeling and multimodal impact assessments. A study that did not include any of these developments and that did not assess conditions south of 5th North Street cannot serve as the foundation for today's decision-making. No traffic impact study has been completed. No traffic impact study or level of service analysis has been provided. No mitigation plans such as turn lanes, signal timing, or traffic calming have been evaluated or proposed. MnDOT's Access Management Manual identifies zoning changes, school adjacency, and known congestions as triggers for a traffic impact study. This project fits that description. For a city of our size, adding dense residential traffic next to a high school without a documented safety or infrastructure plan justifies a formal review before zoning changes are approved. A traffic impact study, including trip analysis, pedestrian safety review, and basic mitigation modeling, is a standard step in the development process. It's routinely completed for projects of this scale and is typically coordinated and funded by the developer as part of the responsible planning. This is not an exceptional ask. It's how cities and developers ensure safety, functionality, and long-term alignment before changes are approved. All available evidence, community experience, traffic counts, school access, and observed backups indicates that Highland functions as a continuous corridor, not isolated segments. Yet decisions are being made without modeling the downstream effects of concentrated development, including the 5th and Highland, currently congested at peak, Center and Garden, already strained by Jefferson Elementary, St. Paul's and Middle School, Oak and Garden, known left turn issues at peak times, neighborhood access, special event parking, and regular congestion on side streets. There is no pedestrian safety plan associated with this proposal. No safe routes to school analysis has been completed. No improvements have been proposed to reduce pedestrian vehicle conflicts despite its site's proximity to student foot traffic and school drop-off congestion. This is a school corridor. Pedestrian safety should be the threshold issue, not a secondary one. Cities across Minnesota routinely request traffic and pedestrian safety studies in cases where proposed zoning materially increases traffic volume. The project is located adjacent to a school. The roadwork network includes documented bottlenecks. Past studies are over 10 years old or particular in scope. This is not an unusual request. It is entirely aligned with how cities and developers typically work together to ensure thoughtful, forward-looking development. The cost of the study is typically borne by the developer as part of the normal entitlement process. We understand a broader traffic study may be conducted by MnDOT in 2026, but that study would occur after zoning decisions have been made. It cannot inform this decision, and relying on future data to justify current action eliminates the city's ability to respond if issues arise. If the city approves this development without new information and defers to a post-approval monitoring process, the opportunity for proactive design and mitigation is lost. This location alone makes this a sensitive site. Any study should incorporate input from the full range of stakeholders impacted by corridor-level decision, including New Ulm High School, ISD 88, New Ulm EMS, Police and Fire, City Public Works, and Public Utilities, nearby residences and businesses who experience daily traffic impact. City Safety Commission, whose purpose it is to evaluate traffic and safety, but has not reviewed or offered input on either comprehensive plan amendment or the current zoning request. This coordination would strengthen community confidence, ensure that emergency access is protected, and support the long-term success of any project approved for this area. When a proposed development directly affects school access and emergency response corridors, it is the city's responsibility to initiate coordination, not wait. There is additional undeveloped land in the surrounding area. We ask the city to clarify whether other rezoning or development applications are pending nearby, whether cumulative impacts are being evaluated as part of the broader infrastructure plan. This proposal would not be evaluated in isolation if more development is expected in the same corridor. In May of 2024, this parcel was designated low-density residential under the city's comp plan. That plan was adopted to guide long-term growth along New Ulm. By February of 2025, the parcel was redesignated high density. Changing our 20-year plan in less than a year without proper due diligence is hard to reconcile with the goals that the plan was built to serve. We ask the city to pause and require a third-party corridor-wide traffic and pedestrian safety study before final zoning is approved. Doing so would align with the intent of the 2024 comprehensive plan, ensure coordination with public safety and school access, preserve public trust, enable the city and developer to work in partnership, avoid making long-term decisions based on 20-year-old data and methods that did not utilize current technology. For context, the 2006 report predates a smartphone. We respectfully ask the council to table the rezoning application until a traffic impact study or coordinated planning review are completed, require coordination with school leadership, EMS, and fire services in partnership with the Safety Commission, commission a pedestrian safety and safe routes to school assessment, clarify whether additional development is anticipated in the corridor. With the benefit of the above, reevaluate whether this site remains appropriate for high-density zoning. Last page. In conclusion, we understand that this proposal has already moved through several stages, but this is a moment to step back, not to delay the progress, but to ensure that it moves forward on solid ground. The scale and sensitivity of this site call for a higher standard of review than what has occurred so far. This is not a request for delay, it's a request for responsibility. One we believe will result in stronger outcome for all parties involved. Thank you for your time, your leadership, and your commitment to thoughtful community development. Sincerely, Thomas and Amanda McGannon.
Engineer Stadheim or Mr. Nicely, were there any things that they requested that weren't addressed or couldn't have been tied to some of the other studies and recent traffic findings, the predicted numbers that are still accurate after 20 years? So I do believe that there is some accuracy in that modeling.
Yeah, Madam President, City Councilors, so the past practice of the City Council, back when the high school was built, we had similar requests at that time, and the direction we received at that time was, let's wait, see what traffic patterns are established, and then we can study the actual conditions once it's built and once there are trips out there, instead of using projections and whatnot. So at that time, the school was built, and then we did the intersection studies and had the warrants that were met to construct the proper improvements to help the corridor. North Highland Avenue is a state aid route. We do have to have studies in order to put in infrastructure improvements, and we have to make sure those warrants are met to construct those improvements. So I guess I would like I guess my recommendation would be that council follows past practice, and we can study it once the project is built and then make the proper improvements at that time. So I think there's some just difference in terms here. So MnDOT doesn't do traffic studies for us. They do traffic counts. So that they perform traffic counts on this segment of North Highland Avenue in 2021. And that number was provided earlier by Planner Nisley at that 3,500 vehicles per day. Also in 2024, they did counts between 5th and Center Street on North Island Avenue, and that was at 39,000. So I think it's safe to say that the traffic.
3,900?
3,900 or 1,000?
Yeah, 3,900, my apologies. So I think it's a safe assumption that, the count, today in 2025 is somewhere between that, 3,500 to $4,000 vehicles per day count. Which, if you factor in the projected growth using that EPA model, would be very similar to what's on North Garden Street today. North Highland Avenue was constructed with the medians to reduce conflict points and access locations. Any new development is not allowed to have driveways out to North Highland Avenue, and the median cuts are put there to kind of control where traffic egresses and ingresses out of the developments. Which was all, part of the design and report back in 2006. I think it's important to note that North Highland Avenue feasibility study back in 2006 really encompassed an area of plus or minus 200 acres to the west of North Highland Avenue, even areas beyond the New Ulm Municipal Airport. So I guess.
And that the projections are precisely in line with what is going to be expected.
Yep.
And that feasibility studies cost taxpayers between $40,000 and $100,000, depending.
If the direction was to get a consultant and do a study today, depending on size and scope, but yeah, easily $40,000 to $100,000. Yep.
Okay, my understanding is tonight we're just approving the application, correct?
Approving the general development plan.
There's
Which
been
would-
no development agreement.
No.
That hasn't even been worked on yet.
No.
So a lot of these questions that I heard in here will come up at the development agreement, correct?
Yeah, as far as who's responsible for paying for things like any utility infrastructure that may be needed, road right-of-way, those types of things. This is unique in the situation where the developer is proposing to fully fund the extension of 10th North Street. Typically, what would happen is we would get a street that the city would put in, and then we'd talk about assessments and utility costs for the infrastructure that would be put in the street. In this case, it's different where they're actually paying for all of that, and the city's not on the hook for both the underground utility infrastructure or the roadway and curb and gutter and sidewalk.
And it's something that comes to my mind. I don't know if you other counselors have thought about it. All of these issues the residents and whatnot are bringing up is exactly why the state of Minnesota wants to pull our authority.
Yes.
Because we dictate, or we want this, we want that.
Correct. There is a lot of legislation pending that will essentially strip every community of its ability to do any zoning whatsoever and would allow any type of contractors to come in and build any type of home on city, multifamily housing right next to your side, on your side street in town. And that's a very serious issue, that I'm working on and I'm passionate about. But in comparison, I mean, this is part of our comprehensive plan. It is housing that is desperately needed. It is market rate housing. It is a legal transaction between a developer and a landowner. And we've followed all of the processes. Will there be more traffic? Likely, yes. Do we take the safety of our community seriously? Absolutely, we do. Have you seen a lot of the lighted crosswalks that have come in and some of the different like RFP, what are the beacons?
Yeah,
Can you talk about
RFBs, rapid rectangular flashing beacons.
Yes, flashing beacons. We do make a lot of safety improvements and we do take this seriously, but we have to have the real information and those real counts and those real studies to get the money to do the projects. I mean, this is how this process works.
Madam President, may I?
Yes.
I think it's important to note too, we recently awarded that contract to SRF Consulting Group for the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan for the city of New Ulm. So the city is going to be looked at in the comprehensive view for pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, and vehicular safety across the city as a whole. And we can specifically include the North Island Avenue corridor as a focus point in the study as it moves forward as well. And that study or that report and plan will come up with concept recommendations and things of that nature to ease our congested corridor locations across the city. So I just think it's important to note that we are in the infancy stage of this process. It's a 2-year process, but it is something we are working on.
Mr. Nisley, what is the timeline we're possibly looking at for the 2 phases?
So the developer would like to just start phase 1 potentially in August, September, and do basically the groundwork, the underground work, and then that would be for construction during the winter for phase 1. Phase 2 is potentially, or it's also a little bit tied in with how quickly the buildings fill up in phase 1 before they start that next step of the process for phase 2. But it's likely somewhere between, from beginning to end, could be anywhere from 1 whole year from now for phase 1 out to 3-4 years for phase 2.
So we have a lot of time to kind of figure out where these patterns are going, where the problems are, or things that we can assess.
John, I've got a question, and I think I brought this up during the Planning Commission meeting. If this was single-family development, how many units would be there potentially, versus, say, the apartment?
Sure, so let's just use the low-density residential land use designation. So in our comp plan, low-density or LDR land uses would allow up to 12 units per acre. At high density, we allow up to 21. This project, when you look at the number of units and the 10.2 acres, it comes out to 14.9. So approximately 3 more units per acre than what we would allow in low-density land use designation.
Thank you.
President and councilors, I've got a few comments and questions representing our Northwest Ward number 3 that many of our constituents are here today. Thank you for your public engagement. Thank you for being in part of the civics project, process for us here. So my first question is, how do we pronounce the name of this developer's name? I've heard Kepper, Keeper, Cooper.
Keepers?
Keepers, it is Keepers, okay. And I see in the packet here that this developer is got a number of other projects in our state of Minnesota. In fact, I see in the packet there's 21 other greater Minnesota cities not in the Metro 7 counties, Metropolitan Council area. So 21 other municipalities that Keepers has got completed projects in, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And I think we'll all agree that our community needs additional housing and that housing is important for community sustainability and community growth. Many developments in Minnesota municipalities do not have 100% community support. Basically, developments are rare to please everyone in the community at all times, even during the planning process. I have heard that we have met all legal requirements for this proposed action. Is that, in fact, I presume that's true?
In our review of this proposal with the city attorney, we meet all the legal requirements. He's also on the phone and probably could verify that with us.
Is
Mr.
I
Scott?
am on the line, Council President and members of the council. I've been working with staff and their preparations of their report to the Planning Commission first. I did attend the Planning Commission meeting where the public hearing on this project was conducted. I've also obviously reviewed what's before you on the record this evening. The city staff and Planning Commission have conducted an extremely thorough review of this. The record is well established. The finding of the fact that the Planning Commission made in recommending approval to the City Council, in my view, are well supported. So yes, the answer to your question is yes, this project and the city's process in reviewing the application have met all legal requirements that would be required to be met for the city to grant the application. With that said, this is the body that has the final decision authority. If there's any aspect of the record that the city council views differently than the planning commission, it is in the city council's discretion to make a different finding or to refer the matter back to the planning commission. But again, my summary conclusion here is that this is an extremely well-developed record in support of the application.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Thank you. A couple of other items. Our comprehensive plan is a guidance document. Comprehensive plan is also a living and breathing document that can and should be edited when appropriate for community development. The traffic, there's been a lot of talk about traffic on North Highland Avenue. I bicycle with my wife there quite often. And I'm not aware of any other road in our city that could handle more traffic than North Highland. I was here when it was built, designed and built, and constructed, with 2 lanes and then parking on each side, and that was designed for the expansion to 4 lanes. I think that was a very wise design and wise construction because we certainly haven't needed 4 lanes of traffic on North Island yet. I don't know if Engineer Stadheim, are you aware of any other street in town, any other road in our municipality that is ready-made for additional traffic, such as that stretch of North Highland Avenue?
Not a municipal-owned one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. And then maybe my final question has to do with parks. I see that the parkland dedication fee is stated to be $56,000. And our nearest park to this development is Fender Park, kind of a open canvas. I think most of us probably know where Fender Park is and what its makeup is. So it's available for, design and development. And I think there is a number of funds in the Parkland Dedication Fund. There's some money in there for development. And I think neighborhood involvement in developing, in planning that park for development, I think would be wise and prudent. And I see we have our Park and Recreation Director here. I wonder if he just maybe mention a word or two about this. I know we're in the beginning of a parks system master plan. Can you, Joey, Mr. Schugel, mention anything about your thoughts related to the nearest park to this development, Fender Park?
Yes, thank you, Council President, Councilors. Joey Schugel, Park and Rec Director for the City of New Ulm. Fender Park, as Councilor Schmitz has mentioned, is 6.6 acres. It is considered an undeveloped neighborhood park. It is awaiting development like a number of our other properties in our newer developments throughout the city. As Councilor Schmitz said, it is a blank slate. Neighborhood engagement would be important if developed. So there'd be a number of opportunities for the residents in the area to be part of that. Our consultants with ISG know about both the undeveloped park, but also know about the potential development going on up there too, and are aware of that to make some recommendations in the master plan if this moves forward.
Thank you, Director Schugel. That concludes my comments and questions.
I would like everyone to be, Mayor, did you have anything to add?
First of all, it's encouraging to see our residents here tonight. That's what our government is all about, to have representation and to listen and to be heard. I want to thank the staff, because I believe the staff and the counselors, myself and city manager, have listened to the concerns and responded with due diligence, looking at the best interest of the city of New Ulm, and that's why we're all sitting here today. Also want to thank the developer for looking at New Ulm. Goodness sakes, if they're in 21 other communities, and New Ulm has been begging for developers to come into the city for how many years? And I know it's been a long time, and to have the interest that we have now, when we know we have a need, one of the three priorities that the city looks at is housing, labor, and daycare. And it looks to me like housing now can be addressed. Yes, there are concerns, and as Councilor Schmidt said, a project is never 100% embraced by the residents. What I'm encouraged about when I hear so much about the traffic is that we have a built-in solution with the capability of Highland going to 4 lanes, which really somebody had some foresight looking at that, as we know that future development would be along that Highland corridor. So those were my comments.
Thank you. And I would also like to say it is great to see so many people here and very engaged. And I hope that you understand that my prior protocol has not been to allow public comments, and that is just something that I keep to for constant consistency. But my goal was to respond to those who had written to me or called me or texted me, and I hope that I've done all of that. If there's any that I've missed, I will get back to you. I promise. I always will. That's actually... to me personally, if you had written to me, I don't allow public comment, and I'm going to just move on. I thank you all for being here, and I hope that the information that we have provided has been helpful in understanding that we're not just as a city making a willy-nilly decision and grabbing, a developer that's coming into our community. We do have and have had a strong need for future development. It looks like a lot of the options have been explored. They've gone through the process, the Planning Commission, the public notifications, and the finding of facts. And for those reasons, I will be in support of this project this evening. I will let any of the other councilors make any comments as well.
I just want to bring up that we actually had the Planning Commission had a public hearing last Thursday. Everybody was able to attend. Their questions were answered. John received several letters, emails. I forwarded on to John what I received, make sure it's transparent. John did have to go through, I'm going to try and say it, they were similar in nature, the questions, to try to put them together, because we had to go through every one. And we were here for 4 hours going through every one, line by line. And, John did a very great job, dealing with a lot of information to try to outline it. And I'd like to thank the Planning Commission members, for sitting here for 4 hours. It was a long meeting, to go through it. And have 3 planned unit developments in one night is a rare situation, is what I'm going to say.
Yeah, likewise. I do appreciate the civil conversations I've had with people from the neighborhood, from community members. It has been very good. But housing is the number one thing in this community. Clearly, you've done your homework. You've pointed out to all of us there are very limited options of any place for an apartment to go. They've done their work. This is something we can learn. I mean, like we said, it's 2 years out, probably more for the complete build. We can watch patterns. We can figure things out. When we need to put a roundabout by the school, we do it. We fix the problems. But
Well, I guess
it's It's,
Not
it's the cost of growth. I mean, do we want our city to just flounder? Our hospitals can't find people. Our nursing homes can't find nurses. Manufacturing cannot.
Look at any city.
Okay,
Have a vacancy rate very similar.
sure.
I work in the medical industry. I know what it's like. And when I invest in the community and did my due diligence before I moved here.
Okay, we're getting off track here.
But-
This isn't how we run a council meeting.
This is not on a dime, sir.
For the others, so.
Sir,
None of you live
yes.
up there. That's the problem, is you don't have to deal with it.
Counselor Christian, any comments?
My comment is, normally I don't make a positive comment. I appreciate staff with the 81-page report. All of my questions did get answered. That did not get answered, I showed up in your office, give me clarification on it. I understand the concerns up there. I also read into that about, it was zoned agricultural open space, correct?
Yeah.
Right. We have that right with the comprehensive plan for urban use, what we deem fit. And in my mind, I agree with it. We need the housing. I think it'll be a good use of the property. I'll support it this evening. That's my comment.
Thank you. I cannot make a motion.
Well, I'm going to offer a motion to recommend approval of the application of Steve Keepers on behalf of Keepers Incorporated applicant and Keith Marty, owner, for general development plan associated with planned unit development project for the property to be generally described as part of outlots 194, 195, 196, 197. See Exhibit A describing the 4-lot addition and Exhibit B of the plot of the Highland Apartment Addition. These properties are generally located at 901 North Highland Avenue. The reasons for approving this motion are found in the findings of fact form.
Just to be clear, Counselor Mack, that was item 3.1.
Oh, I'm on the, oh, excuse me. Let me, wrong page here. Come on. I got to get my computer to. Okay. Offer the resolution, approve the planned unit development with general development plan by Steve Keepers Incorporated for the property currently legally described as parts of outlot 194, 195, 196, 197, street address 901 North Avenue. Right? That's what I have here.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Warmka?
Yes.
Counselor Schmitz?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
President Becker?
Yes, that motion does carry. Thank you. Item 3.2 is a conditional use permit for Caitlin Cordes and Ronnie and Sue Cordes.
All right, Council President, councilors, the proposed action here is to offer a resolution to approve the conditional use permit with conditions of Caitlin Cordes to allow a 6-foot-tall fence to remain in the front yard setback area on 15th North Street, on the 15th North Street side of the property zoned RT2, traditional neighborhood, single and two-family residence district, and legally described as Lot 1, Block 81, north of Center Street. We also have another proposed action to deny that, if so the council chooses. So the Planning Commission at its May 29th, 2025 meeting unanimously recommended approval with 3 conditions for the conditional use permit. Just a brief description. The purpose of the RT2 zoning district is to provide for low density and 1 and 2 unit dwellings generally located in the grid development pattern along with directly related and complementary uses. Section 13.2 of Appendix A describes a front yard as an open, unobstructed yard extending along the full width of the front lot line between the side lot lines and extending from the abutting street right-of-way line to a depth required in the setback regulations in the zoning district in which such a lot is located. So generally speaking, in our RT2 zoning districts, our corner lots have 2 front yards. Typically, the longer front yard is along the numbered street, and the shorter front yard, the 50-foot width, is along the named street. That is the situation in this case. So for properties located in this district, the front yard setback where this fence is located would be 10 feet. And they are required to be no taller than 48 inches. Section 10.3EB states that fences not exceeding 48 inches in height may be located within a front yard setback area. That means if they get a conditional use permit from the city. The applicant was issued a fence permit by mistake by city staff, and when staff saw the fencing being installed at 6 foot tall, they contacted the property owner regarding the fence height in that location. After discussion, the applicant and the city attorney, after discussion with the applicant and the city attorney, it was decided that the property owner could apply for a conditional use permit to allow a fence to be that height in that location. When locating fences within the front yard setback area, there exists required site safety areas where the fence is not allowed to exceed 50% should be 50% or more transparent. These areas include abutting driveway or a street corner. The fence in its current location is in compliance with the provision of the fence regulations. The fence is also in compliance with all other fence regulations other than height. There were 3 recommended conditions. One, that the applicant/property owner will pay the cost to record the permit with the Brown County Recorder's Office. 2, that the fence will be regularly maintained and not become or remain a condition of disrepair or constitute a nuisance. And then 3, the permit is limited to the location and dimensions of the installed fence located in the front yard area and shown in attachment 4 of the staff reports of the Planning Commission. That's the site map. We have not received any comments regarding this conditional use permit application, and that concludes the staff report.
Thank you,
One
Mr.
question
Nisley.
For Mr. Nisley. Refresh my memory, did we get rid of that old, what I used to call the 45 rule by a driveway on a public sidewalk? Because I noticed that we're allowing 6 feet high by that driveway right to the sidewalk.
Councilor Christian, we brought that up at the Planning Commission,
Yep.
and then the homeowner said he had his fence all mapped out, and then the topic came up by one of the Planning Commission members to make a square box, change his site plan, so there would be no fence. But maybe we don't have the updated
Okay.
on here.
They
But it was
did,
brought up.
if you were to drive by today, they did come out one panel from the garage towards the home and then come back down.
So they left
That's
us
what I wanted to know. Thank you.
a square
It's not on
there.
this picture. They did it. All right.
So, and from the Planning Commission side, we've done this twice in the past year. So it's just unique with 2 front yards. So.
President and councilors, I'd like to offer the resolution to approve the conditional use permit with conditions of Caitlin Cordes to allow a 6-foot tall fence to remain in the front yard setback on the 15th North Street side of the property zoned RT2, traditional neighborhood, single and 2-family residence district, and legally described as Lot 1, Block 81, north of Center Street.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Warmka?
Yes.
Counselor Schmitz?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
President Becker?
Yes, motion carries. Item 3.3 is a variance request for 608 South Front Street.
All right, this variance request is by Renee Peterson to construct a 28-foot by 35-foot residential detached garage to be constructed between the existing home and the front yard setback line on property legally described as Lot 3, Block 6, south of Center Street. The Planning Commission at its May 29th, 2025 meeting unanimously recommended approval of the variance with 5 conditions. So a little background, this property is requesting the variance is located on a typical 50 by 165 grid lot. The applicant is proposing to install a 28 by 35 detached garage that would be approximately 980 square feet. In a residential zoning district, property owners are allowed to have a detached accessory structure up to 1,000 square feet allowed on the property. The garage is proposed to be built slab on grade with the driveway off of South Front Street. So they'd be entering the garage off of South Front Street. The applicant would need to secure a curb cut from the city engineer, and the maximum curb cut width is 24 feet. Section 9.3 of the zoning ordinance requires in a residential zoning district that any detached accessory structure be located on the side or behind the principal structure on the property. The principal structure in a residential district is typically the residence. I would also note that if this were attached to the residence, we wouldn't be here requesting a variance. It would be allowed. The required front yard setback in the zoning district is 30 feet. In residential zoning districts where adjacent structures within the same block have front yard setbacks different from those required, the front yard minimum setback is the average of the adjacent structures. So let's just do, for easy math, there's many times in our grid section, we might have a house located on this lot, Lot A, that's at 20 foot from the front yard property line, and then Lot B over here, located at 10 foot from the front property line. The vacant lot in the middle could go up to 15 feet from the front yard property line. The existing house on the property was constructed in 1952, and the location of this property, location of the house on this property is 110 feet from the front property line. And then we had in the staff report 5 feet from the north sideline and 22 feet from the south sideline, and also 0 feet from the property lines. It was noted at the Planning Commission meeting that those numbers were inaccurate. So as needing more clarification by the Planning Commission to make sure that the proposed garage would meet all setbacks, they added as a condition that the property be surveyed, professionally surveyed, prior to the issuance of the building permit for the residential detached structure. So let's see here. If the garage were attached to the home, the garage would need to install 42-inch frost footing at minimum to match the footing depth of the home. Staff has reviewed aerial photos in the RT1 and RT2 zoning districts and found nine other properties where the home is set back on or right next to the rear property line abutting the alley. There were 5 recommended conditions. 1, that the applicant shall pay the cost to record the variance with the Brown County's Recorder's Office. 2, that the applicant shall contact the city to verify the location of the building once it is staked. 3, that any accessory buildings on the property that would cause the property to exceed the allowed 1,000 square feet of detached accessory structures on the site shall be removed within 30 days of the final building inspection. 4, that the applicant will install downspouts on the building so that water is directed towards the front or side street of the property and not onto neighboring properties to the north and south. And 5, that the applicant shall conduct a property survey prior to the issuance of a building permit. I would note that we did have, at the Planning Commission meeting, we had as part of the record, there were two letters that came in regarding this application. Both of them were concerned about issuing a variance. The concerns also did note that there is sometimes there's noise potentially from working on a demolition derby vehicle, and maybe that there is consideration that they're running an automotive business out of the property. So for City Council's regard to this project, we do not allow automotive repair as a business in residential zoning districts, period. If we hear about that, we will send, we'll obviously follow the legal process, but we'll send a letter immediately to shut down that type of operation in a residential zoning district. If there are loud noises from working on a car or doing something like demolition derby work, we would request that anybody that has complaints about that, please call the city police department, and they would be the ones to address those noise complaints with regards to the city code and our noise ordinances. So that would conclude the staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Nisely.
All right, I was up, talked to city staff about when the other garage has to come down. I realized at the Planning Commission that decision was made, 30 days of the final building inspection, but I know the building official is going to agree with me. We have seen people take a year to year and a half to complete a garage. That means they put the garage up, shingle it, and they start storing items. And there's no final inspection. The building permit is 180 days continuous. I hope that one doesn't bite us, that now we're down there fighting that while they're using the garage, there's been no final inspection and the other garage can still stay in place. I'd still like to tighten that up a little, but
Okay, well, there is another option. You know, we have our building permits can be issued for a period of 180 days from the date of issuance. Another option would be that would push the homeowner to construct the project more quickly, but that any building that would cause this property to exceed the 1,000 square feet be removed within 180 days of the building permit
I would go with that.
application.
I'd be comfortable with that, because it has happened in the past where some of these projects stretch out a year and a half, and we couldn't do anything, because we gave them 30 days after final inspection.
So are you offering a resolution with those amendments?
Oh, okay. I'm going to offer the resolution to recommend approval with conditions. The variance request by Renee Peterson to construct a 28 by 35 residential detached garage to be constructed between the existing home and the front yard setback line on the property legally described as Lot 3, Block 6, South of Serna Street, with the 5 stated conditions and changing item 3 to within 180 days of the building permit issue. Correct?
Yep.
All right.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yes, President, just a quick question maybe for Planner Nisley about the Susan Sullivan question related to water runoff. Have you mentioned anything about that?
So one of the conditions, we requested that downspouts be installed on the building, and that downspouts be directed to either the rear of the property or to the front of the property, which would be Front Street. Now, in any type of development, the city requires that the stormwater stay on site. Okay, so if there are stormwater issues coming off of this roof, one other thing that we could consider too is an extension of that gutter via tile or something like that to bring it further away from the neighboring property if that's the concern of roof water running onto the neighbor's property.
Thank you.
In my mind, the topography of that lot, is it possible we can run both downspouts to the driveway, which I know is possible?
Yeah, I feel like that is a reasonable condition to add.
I mean, there is nowhere to drain to the rear of the property.
Right.
The
That's right.
topography is
It all slopes to Front Street.
correct. So I assume you want me to amend that with adding an item, hang on a second.
From item 3 within the
No,
conditions.
item 3, but also adding item 6 that downspouts will be directed towards Front Street. Rear, front and rear.
Or we could change number 4's condition is the applicant will install downspouts in the building so that water is directed towards the front or side of the or street side of the property. What we could do is change that the applicant will install downspouts on the building so that the downspout water is directed to or on the driveway.
Towards Front Street.
Towards Front Street, yes.
All right. That good?
Thank you. Do I need a second?
Second.
Yes, thank you so much. Any additional discussion? All right, Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Warmka?
Yes.
Counselor Schmitz?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
President Becker?
Yes, that motion carries. Item 3.4 is preliminary plat of Landhaven Edition.
All right, this is to consider the approval with conditions, the preliminary plat of Landhaven Edition located at 2211 Jacob Street. So for reference, this property is a 6.5 acre property located directly behind Walmart and west of Jacob Street. The information on the preliminary plat is provided in the attached report to the Planning Commission that was presented last Thursday. The plat shows 28 lots. 2 of the lots are designed and laid out for proposed 22 barn dominiums. 6 of the lots, which would be on the west side of the proposed plat, are for storage condominiums. And then there are 2 outlots A and B directly adjacent to Jacob Street, and those would be used for stormwater purposes. The property owner or the developer would be installing a U-shaped street, privately install a U-shaped street that would provide frontage for all the lots on the property. The Planning Commission recommended, actually, I'm going to change this to 4 conditions. 1, to pay the plating fee of $480, and then the fee per lot for the development. Provide an electronic file of the drawing in AutoCAD 2016 or newer format. The applicant shall enter into a development agreement and general development plan with the City of New Ulm, as this plat is associated with the next plan unit development that we'll be discussing. And then 5, the resolution approving this request will be filed with the Brown County Recorder's Office. That concludes the staff report.
Thank you.
Move forward, approved with conditions, the preliminary plat of Land Haven Edition located at 2211 Jacob Street.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion does carry. Item 3.5 is the PUD General Development Plan for Land Haven.
All right, this proposed action is to offer a resolution to approve the application for a PUD with a general development plan by Anthony Golden on behalf of Land Haven Development Incorporated. The property is currently legally described as Lot 1, Block 1, Airport Industrial 3rd Edition, with a street address of 2211 Jacob Street, the one we just discussed for a preliminary plat. The Planning Commission at their May 29th, 2025 meeting unanimously recommended approval of the request with conditions based on the findings of fact form that was completed by the Planning Commission. Those are attached to your City Council items. Again, this project that's being proposed would involve the platting of 28 building lots, 1 of such designated for the private U-shaped street, 2 outlets for stormwater, 2 outlots for stormwater retention purposes. When considering this type of project, because we don't have in our industrial zoning district, which this project is located, it's located in the I-1 zoning district, we don't allow for residential living spaces in the I-1 district. This type of project has been constructed in many other communities in the Midwest, just not in New Ulm. We do have the option, or we're considering the option right now, of the general development plan through the plan unit development process to allow living spaces or barn dominiums in this zoning district. Okay? That PUD process and layout allows for this type of deviation from the city's strict application of the I-1 zoning standards. But we wanted to ensure that we all know that in industrial areas, there's noise, there's smoke, there's smells. Could be any number of those things in the industrial area that could be developed around this property. So we've worked with the applicants and proposed developers who are here tonight to ensure that if this were to proceed forward, they would need to develop an association and provide those association documents to any proposers of purchasing that property, clearly stating that this is an industrial area, you're subject to industrial noises, sights, sounds, smells, lights, that type of thing that may surround the property. The applicant or developer has agreed with us, and we will review that association document when they have it prepared. They also seem to be pretty strict. They want both the similar color, shape, and style for all the buildings within the development. So the barn dominiums have a certain style and look, and so do the storage condos. The idea is that they all match each other within the development and provide some uniformity. So let's see here. Again, the planning commission unanimously recommended approval. We received no public comment regarding this proposal, either opposed or in favor of it. They did recommend 2 conditions with the approval of the general development plan. One, that the applicant or owner will pay the cost to record the necessary documents with the Brown County Recorder's Office. And 2, the establishment of the PUD project will require the approval of the following documents: rezoning of the property by ordinance, a development agreement, and final plat. That would conclude the staff report.
Mr. Nisley, so I had a question. So some of these would be living space and some would be storage condos only that wouldn't have residents in it, correct?
Yes,
So they
that's our
could kinda have the
understanding, because
option?
they wouldn't have sewer connected to them, and those would be the 6th furthest to the west.
So only those would be kind of the livable spaces?
No, the 6th to the west wouldn't be.
Wouldn't be. Okay, gotcha. Robert, I have a question for you. Would we be involved at all in like kind of the developing kind of, the agreement to let people know, like if you're going to live here, like Mr. Nisley said, like subject to noise and, that kind of thing? Because this is a new thing. I don't love it, but I'm not afraid to try it. Like I think that this is something, a creative way to move forward, but I do have some reservations on that side. Like, have you done any of these before? Project like this?
Council President, members of the council, I have not worked on a project like this with living quarters and otherwise industrial storage development. But the condition was that the association be established and that the association documents be provided to the city for review. So we would, I expect, be called on to review in consultation with city staff to make sure that the public records are transparent for anyone that's interested in purchasing in this development. What the city planner described as being the realities of locating within an industrial area.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
I would just note that we had reviewed association documents for other projects. The M&D property attached storage condos on 20th North. We also reviewed those. What's that? 19th North. We also reviewed those association documents.
Great, thank you.
President and councilors, I'd like to go ahead and offer a resolution to approve the application for planned unit development with a general development plan by Anthony Golden on behalf of Land Haven Development Incorporated for the property currently legal described as Lot 1, Block 1, Airport Industrial, 3rd Edition, with a street address of 2211 Jacob Street with conditions.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I'd like to make a comment, extend appreciation to Tony Golden for providing us with this unique opportunity and another solution to our housing. So thank you.
Yes, I agree. I still have mixed emotions, but I want to move forward and kind of see. I think it'll be a good thing. So.
I think we're going about it the right way. We're
Yeah.
getting the planned unit development. I've heard it for a number of years that people want to live in their house, shed, whatever you want to call it, but, barning in them. Yeah. So we're offering another diverse avenue for the community. If that's what they choose, that's what they choose.
Great.
So.
Any other comments? Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Warmka?
Yes.
Counselor Schmitz? Counselor Mack?
Yes.
President Becker?
Yes, that motion carries. We made our way to new business. Item 4.1 is to vacate the easement area for Cynthia and Alvin Stabenow.
All right. Sorry, but you still have 3 more from me right in a row.
Voice getting so.
Who's counting?
So this is to consider to vacate an easement area by Cynthia and Alvin Stabenow. They're the owners of property legally described as Lot 10 and 11, Block 1, Lakeside Village Edition. Lot 10 is located at 1008 Mac Lane, and Lot 11 is located at 1012 Mac Lane. These 2 lots have a 10-foot wide utility easement area on their joint side property line. So right where those 2 lots go together, there's a 5-foot easement on either side, paralleling those lines. They're requesting the vacation of these easement areas to allow for a construction of a new home to proceed. So the proposed new home would cross the lot line and the easement line. So in order for us to be able to allow that, we would have to vacate the easement. To cross a property line, we do allow if the property owner owns both properties and that property be sold together. The 10-foot utility easement would remain in the front of the property. The utility and drainage easement of varying depths would remain at the rear or lakeside of the property, and the vacation would also not include the front or rear easement area on both lots. Staff has been in contact with public utilities and other private utility services, and they have indicated that they have no problems with vacating this easement area as there are not utilities located within it. I would also note that staff has reached out to the Stabenows because they're in the process, or will be in the process this week, of installing curb and gutter along Lake and Mac Lane. So we wanted to reach out to them and attempt to try to save them a few bucks by locating that curb cut right now, rather than having to cut one in later. And her and I have had a few conversations back and forth. And at this time, working with her developer, she doesn't know where that curb cut's going to be, and she understands that we were trying to help her, and this might cost her a little bit extra money. So we did reach out to her on that fact. We would request one condition, that the easement vacation will be effective with the filing of the resolution approving this request with the Brown County Recorder's Office. That concludes the staff report.
Thank you.
I guess this all seems pretty fair, so I'll offer a resolution approving the request from Cynthia and Alvin Stabenow to vacate a 10-foot wide easement area centered on the side property line between 1008 and 1012 Mac Lane.
Second.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
President and Councilor, just a quick note that we are not quite certain apparently why the easement is there or was there.
So
I think it may have been for potential public access to the lake, if it were going to be a public lake or not.
Madam President, City Councilors, that's a standard 5-foot easement that we do in all new developments for utility purposes. The public lake access, well, I don't believe is a public lake access. There is a larger easement further down to the west on Lake Avenue, but I would have to review that easement language to see if it is for public access or not, because I don't believe there is public access.
I don't think there is either. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Director, we had a motion and a second, right? Yes, okay. Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Warmka?
Yes.
Counselor Schmitz?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
President Becker?
Yes, that motion does carry. All right, item 4.2 is regarding ordinance number 2025-TBD, first consideration on zoning.
All right, this is to conduct the first consideration of ordinance 2025 to be determined following number, amending 3.2 of Appendix A of the City Code of the City of New Ulm relative to zoning in the city. The property proposed for rezoning is described in Exhibit A and would be rezoned from AOS to High Density Planned Unit Development District Number 2. That would be R4, PUD Number 2. This is for the Highland Apartments Steve Keeper's development project. Property is legally described as part of Outlot 194, 195, and 196, and 197. Property is going to be platted as lots 1 through 4 in 10th North Street, Highland Apartments Edition. This is the first consideration of the rezoning request. The second consideration would go to the council on June 17th, and then following that, there would be the 30-day potential comment period before it would be changed. That concludes the staff report.
Motion to conduct the first consideration of ordinance number 2025, amending chapter 3.2 of Appendix A of the City Code of the City of New Ulm relative to zoning in said city.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Item 4.3 is ordinance number 2025-TBD, first consideration for zoning as well.
All right, this is the first consideration for the Land Haven Planned Unit Development. The ordinance for the Land Haven Development to go from Planned Industrial I-1 to Planned Unit Development District Number 3, or PUD Number 3. Again, the property is legally described as Lot 1, Block 1, Airport Industrial 3rd Edition. Property is going to be platted as Land Haven Edition, and we all know it's located west of Jacob Street and north of Walmart and Barron's Boulevard. Again, this would come back to the council for its second consideration on June 17th.
Make a motion to conduct the first consideration of ordinance number 2025-TBD, amending Chapter 3.2 of Appendix A of the City Code of the City of New Ulm relative to zoning in said city, Land Haven PUD.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion does carry. Item 4.4, 2025 General Obligation Permanent Improvement Revolving Fund Bonds.
Counselors, this is just the next step in issuing bonds for the year. The $5.3 million would be issued on August 5th and approved later. Of course, there'll be more steps where you'll see some of the offering statements and everything as we go through the next month.
Well, I'm going to offer the resolution, authorize the issuance, establishing the terms and conditions of the sale, set sale date for August 5th, 2025, 10 a.m. in the amount of $5,300,000 for general obligation, permanent improvement revolving fund bond series 2025.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Warmka?
Yes.
Counselor Schmitz?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
President Becker?
Yes, motion carries. Item number 4.5 is attendance at the 2025 NLC City Summit Conference.
I guess Dave and I will take this one.
Yeah.
We attended last year, and it was an absolutely amazing event. I hope Councilor Schmitz gets a lot out of it, and Mayor Becker. It's very nice to see you
The mayor?
attending as well. So I'll make a motion to approve the following to attend the annual 2025 National League of Cities City Summit Conference in Salt Lake City, Utah, from November 20th to the 22nd, 2025. Our city manager, Chris Dalton, Mayor Kathleen Backer, Council President Andrea Betker, and Councilman Tom Schmitz.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion does carry. Item 4.6, New Ulm Battery Cannon Shoot Music in Riverside Park.
President and councilors, I'd like to authorize the request from the American Legion to allow the New Ulm Battery to conduct a cannon shoot at Riverside Park, 101 South Front Street during the American Legion Post 132 Music in Riverside Park event to fire up to 12 rounds from the cannon commemorating the event on Wednesday, July 16, 2025, between 7 p.m. and 8 p.m.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion does carry. Item 4.7 is a police department donation. Chief.
City Council President, members of the council, in front of you is just there's a resolution asking to accept a $300 donation from Sleepy Eye Servicemen's Club. Basically, they've agreed to donate and support the suicide prevention program that we're working with. There'll be an event offered on August 23rd, 2025. The veteran organization, I was very pleased. They're from Sleepy Eye, and they're supporting. This is there's really no boundaries on this. This could be, offered anywhere, but this, certainly supports everyone, specifically Brown County, but it's going to be offered here in New Ulm. So I was very pleased with that support from them. And they're recognizing veteran suicide, which has a national average of 17 veterans a day die from suicide. So is there any questions or anything? Otherwise,
Great
thank you.
program. I'll offer the resolution to accept a monetary donation from the Sleepy Eye Servicemen's Club in the amount of $300 to support September Suicide Awareness Month.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Director Jorgensen, please call the roll.
Counselor Christian?
Yes.
Counselor Warmka?
Yes.
Counselor Schmitz?
Yes.
Counselor Mack?
Yes.
President Becker?
Yes, motion carries. Last item of business today is item 5.1, report of claims paid.
Make a motion to accept the list of claims paid in the amount of $2,324,068.82.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. That motion does carry. And with no additional business, tonight's meeting is adjourned. Thank you.